Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the Third Eagle of the Apocalypse and the co-prophet of the end times. This is part 3 in my series on the amazing prophecies that the Blessed Mother gave to two shepherd children, Melanie Calvat and Maximum Giraud, at La Salette, France, way back in 1846. Now, these prophecies have been largely discarded even in the church, and this is a terrible mistake. This is apocalyptic prophecy, and that means it becomes more important in these end times. We need to understand what Mary is saying because they refer to us. Probably the biggest reason the prophecies of La Salette have been misunderstood is because people do not understand the true chronology. Mary divided up this apocalyptic prophecy into 7 different sections, and each one is a different chronology. They each start with a year back in the 19th century, and they end with an end times event, such as Armageddon. Now, in my last program on La Salette, we had begun to look at the 3rd section of these amazing prophecies. And that section began with the year 1864. And we had worked our way up to where Mary was prophesying about UFOs, alien abductions, and zombies. I think most of us recognize that the UFO phenomenon really began in the 50s, especially with that incident in Roswell, New Mexico. Now, as far as zombies go, I received a very interesting letter from Jim OConnor, and he gave me permission to use his name, and I would like to read this for you and see if you think that he had an encounter with zombies. William, I graduated from West Point in 1976. In 1972, I and my roommate lived in room 4714 of North Barracks. We were in company G4. We were the 2 plebes who saw the West Point ghost for a period of about 40 days. One of the more unusual things that happened to us, and not widely known, we were visited by a being who appeared to be an upperclassman, a junior year cadet, who identified himself as John Hamilton. We were warned if we told anyone his name, we would suffer a terrible curse. He identified himself as the 7th son of a 7th son, and that he was a warlock in his religion. He told us exactly what the ghost would do in his next appearance for a period of 2 weeks, in an attempt to gain our trust. He was very tall, strong-looking, and flawlessly handsome. He would not let us look into his eyes, which are the mirror of the soul. No other cadets ever saw him come or go into our room. During the 2 weeks he appeared to us, he tried to get us to trust him and join him in chants. He hated the rosary and the brown scapular. When it was clear to him that we continued to cling to our rosary and scapular, he left and never came back. During our 35th reunion, my roommate and I took part in the ghost story in room 4714, 2 cadets in company G4, and some of our classmates. This room was closed for about 20 years and was reopened only as a study hall. After the reunion, my roommate's eyes and my eyes were opened to who Cadet John Hamilton really was. He was a devil in a human body or human form, and not a real person. In the history of West Point, there was a cadet named John Hamilton. Now, Jim, I'm not sure here if you mean there was a cadet or there was not a real cadet. Maybe you could add a comment below and clarify this for us. Had we not been protected by the prayers of some fellow cadets who were non-Catholic, pleading with us to receive communion every day and pray the rosary and wear our scapulars, we would have been easily tricked into following the lead of this apparent wonderful being. He matches the description of a zombie that I understand from your recent video. His goal was to separate us gradually from Jesus. After that, we would have been totally without God's protection. We would have been at the devil's mercy. No one wants to be in that position. You have my permission to use this story to help warn others of the dangers, and you can use my name if necessary. Well, thank you very much, Jim Connor. That's a very eye-opening story, and it shows that zombies have been with us for at least 40 years now. So that brings us up to the 1960s, and what I believe Mary is prophesying about in this second half of the third section of The Secret of La Salette. And I call this section the last four popes. And Mary begins, everywhere there will be extraordinary wonders, because the true faith has faded and a false light shines on the world. And I believe Mary is prophesying here about the Second Vatican Council. And it's interesting that she blames all of these terrible demonic manifestations of the end times on a church event. In other words, Vatican II. Since the Second Vatican Council, thousands of priests and nuns have left the Catholic Church. Mass attendance is way down all over the world. And only just recently have the bishops started to correct some of the errors of that council. In fact, just in the past few weeks, we in the Catholic Church have started to go back to the English translation of the Mass that was used before Vatican II. And I believe they are beginning to acknowledge some of the grievous errors that occurred back in the 60s in the Church. And now Mary continues with this prophecy at La Salette. Woe to the princes of the Church, who only think of piling up riches upon riches to preserve their authority and proud domination. The vicar of my son will have much to suffer. Now I believe this refers to the successor of Pope John, and that would be Pope Paul VI. Because for a time the church will be the victim of great persecution. This will be a time of darkness, and the church will suffer a frightful crisis. Again, I believe this frightful crisis refers to Vatican II. As the holy faith of God is forgotten, every individual will wish to be his own guide and be superior to his fellow man. Now, I believe Mary is referring here to the open defiance that many Catholic bishops gave to Pope Paul VI when he issued that amazing encyclical against artificial contraception called Humanae Vitae. Civil and ecclesiastical authority will be abolished. All order and all justice will be trampled underfoot. Nothing will be seen but murder, hatred, jealousy, falsehood, and discord without love for the mother country or for the family. There are some really scary stories about the Vatican that were revealed about this time through the prophecies at Bayside. And you can read these at tldm.org. Mary said at those prophecies that Pope Paul VI was so ill that he was replaced by a double, an Italian actor who made public appearances in place of the Pope. And as far as murder goes, Mary reveals in those same Bayside prophecies that Pope John Paul I was murdered in the Vatican. And she even names the 3 guilty cardinals who did it. And now that brings us up in the La Salette prophecies to Pope John Paul II. The Holy Father, now I believe this is Pope John Paul II, and I will tell you why in a moment, why I believe Mary is prophesying about him, will suffer a great deal. I will be with him until the end and receive his sacrifice. The wicked will make several attempts on his life. Now this can only refer to Pope John Paul II. But they cannot harm him, but neither he nor his successor Now his successor would be our current Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, will live to see the triumph of the Church of God. Now this last phrase is extremely important. So once again, I believe Mary is prophesying here about a final Pope, one who will see the triumph of the Church. I believe this is the Pope who St. Malachi refers to as Peter the Roman. And I believe this is the same Pope who Mary referred to in section 2 of this La Salette prophecy as the one who must guard against the workers of miracles. And of course, the workers of miracles can only be the Antichrist and the false prophet. Now that brings us up to the very end, the kingdom of the Antichrist, the one-world communist tyranny. All the civil governments will have one and the same plan, which will be to abolish and to do away with every religious principle, to make way for materialism, atheism, spiritualism, and vice of all kinds. So now we see how chronologically this third section of the La Salette prophecies is once again chronologically complete. That is, going from a year in the 19th century, 1864, right up until the final one-world government. And now I want to read a section from Revelation 17, which corresponds almost exactly with Mary's description in this last passage of the final communist tyranny. Now this is from Revelation 17. And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have not yet received a kingdom, but receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength to the beast. This is the 8th beast, by the way. These shall fight with the Lamb. This is Jesus fighting with the one-world tyranny at Armageddon. And the Lamb shall overcome them. Woe to you people who support the New World Order. You will be cast into hell, along with the false prophet and the Antichrist. Because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and elect and faithful. And now looking ahead to my next program on La Salette, which will be part 4, which I call the 1,000 Years of Peace. And Mary once again begins with a new year. In the year 1865, there will be desecration of holy places. So I hope everyone is beginning to understand just how important these end times prophecies are, which the Blessed Mother gave at La Salette, France. Once you know the chronology, you see that they are for us, those of us living in these very dangerous times. And once again, I would like to thank Jim OConnor for sharing his testimony with us and his experience with a zombie at West Point. And as I usually do at the end of the program, I would like to offer you a free copy of my book, Revelation Unraveled. You can simply write to the address you see on your screen or send me a message to my YouTube channel.